Hey, welcome and thank you so much for making a choice and investing your time at Femtech coming along to my presentation. I am absolutely delighted that you made that choice, and I hope that by the end of this session you'll realise that it was absolutely the best thing for you to do. So without further ado, let's get started on today's session, Becoming Friends with Your Inner Critic. So my name's Claire Palmer. I spent 25 years in a communications company where I rose from being part-time in a call centre up to managing anti-bribery and corruption within the legal and regulatory department. Now, throughout that 25 years, I saw technology change, evolve, go to its grave, come back again in some different form. But mostly I saw people, and particularly women, start to flourish within an environment. But one thing I noticed that always held us back was our insane ability to always question ourselves, and often with a negative tone. And that's what I'm here to help you stop doing, or at least become more consciously aware of the action you're taking. And that's why I set up my business, Clarity Coaching, to really help people stop talking to themselves in a negative way, where they enforce limiting self-beliefs or stop themselves from achieving what they really could achieve if they just put 1% of time and effort into actually believing in themselves. I really want you to utilize the chat function during this session. So any comments that you want to make, any questions that you want to ask, any statements that you want to agree with or debate, put it in that chat function. Let me know that you're there, and let me help you really get to grips with this amazing topic and utilize it so that you can become whatever it is you choose to believe. So let's look at what we're going to focus on during today's session. So we're going to look at where our critic comes from, that little voice in our head that often is very negative. Occasionally, don't forget, it will be positive. It will be that voice of reassurance of, you've got this, girl, come on, pull your socks up, let's go for it. So we're going to explore where that comes from. We're going to look at, why is this critic important to us? Why is it there? How can we use it? Why is it going to be important for us going forward in our career, in our life choices, in negotiations, in putting forward through new amazing projects and products? Why is it important, and why can we use it and need it? And then we are going to become really good friends with it. We're going to look at ways that we can implement in our own way, because I don't want you all to be carbon copies of each other. So things that you can implement in your own way that have a massive effect on how you talk to yourself, and therefore what you believe you're capable of. And then we're going to wrap up with a quick summary, and any further questions, put them in the chat, and I'll come back to you. And I'll also share my contact details with you so that you can keep in contact and we can keep this dialogue going. So are we ready to get started on this epic journey of discovering and making friends with our critic? So here's a question I want you to think about. Who is your inner critic? Where do they come from? What kind of voice do they have? When do they most appear? What kind of language do they use? How do they talk to you? So for me, my inner critic often comes up in times where maybe I'm a little bit nervous, I'm a little bit anxious. And actually what I'm looking for is reassurance. What I'm looking for is that friend that comes and puts their arm around you and says, it's okay, you've got this. But instead, what I might hear is, you're not quite good enough for this. How are people going to speak about you? What are they going to say about you? You know, just before I started this presentation, there could have been that voice there going, what if no one turns up? What if they saw you at the last Femtech and they thought, nah, I'm not going to that. But they're all what ifs. And you know what? What if you saw someone talking to someone you cared about like that? What would you say to them? How would you stop their negative impact on the person you cared about? Many of us wouldn't tolerate it. Many of us would step in and say, no, I care about that person so much. I am not allowing you to talk to them in that way. I am not allowing you to give them that impression of themselves. I am not allowing you to hold them back. So here's my next question. Why don't we talk to ourselves like that? Why do we allow this often negative dialogue to continue? Here's why. It's because that inner critic, that dialogue that goes on within your mind, is part of your brain, and it's the part of your brain that is there to keep you safe. In fact, the whole of the brain, the primary function of the brain is to keep you alive. And therefore, this inner critic will look to keep you out of harm's way, will look to keep you safe and secure. That is its function. However, unfortunately, it cannot distinguish between reality, real present danger, and perceived danger. And that is where we need to make a conscious and informed decision on what is that danger? How important is it for me to avoid it? Or can I leap towards it? So we'll use my example again of me just before this conference. Had I have gone, oh no, no one wants to hear what I've got to say, no one's going to turn up. Do you know what? It's safer for me, rather than to face that actually happening, it's safe for me to step away from it, to not do the presentation. But where would that get me? And so what I had to do was kind of say, no, I believe that people will turn up. I believe that if I can change just one person, that my job here has been a success. I believe that if I can influence one person to make a positive impact on themselves, which allows them to have an amazing career or life or make a really great decision, then I've done a good thing. And even if I remove that external influence that I'm going to have, hopefully on at least one of you, even if I just say, no, you know what, it's important that I challenge myself. It's important that I feel I can develop and grow. And that is why I'm going to take this risk. That is why I'm going to work through this fear. That is why I'm going to do whatever it is that I want to do. And so I want you to start thinking about, when you hear that inner critic, when you hear that often negative dialogue, remember, its primary function is to keep you safe, but you need to make a decision on whether you need to be kept safe or whether you can turn around and go, thanks for the advice, but on this occasion, I think I've got it. I'm going to give it a try. So if you take that option, if you say, thank you, inner critic, thank you for keeping me safe. On this occasion, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to see what happens. These are some of the benefits that you may well experience from making that decision. So let's have a look at a few of them. First one on here on the left-hand side, you see that I put, it builds greater resilience. Once we have done something once, our brain starts to develop what we call a schema. It's a way in which it processes information, a way in which it knows what to do. It's how you know the difference between a dog and a lion and the element of danger between the two. Okay, they both have 4 legs, they both have a tail, they both have a head, but your brain knows the difference between the dog and the lion. So therefore, if we start to challenge ourselves, if we start to move away from the negative inner critic and start to try and experiment, often make mistakes, and there's no harm in that, it's how we learn, we can start to build greater resilience because we've got more experience in which to draw upon. You imagine going into a boardroom and pitching a new idea for a piece of tech that's not been created before. Now, if you go in and you are quiet and subdued and you're not passionate about it, the first time that someone says to you, no, I don't think this is a flyer, do you accept that? Do you just screw up that idea and throw it in the bin? Or do you defend what you truly believe in? Show your passion, show what a difference you can make. By all means, take it away, revamp it, bring it back again. But if you truly believe in something, you can build on those experiences to get that resilience, to go back into that boardroom and really demonstrate why you believe this piece of tech is amazing. So therefore, what we start to do is we start to create a dialogue of challenge within ourselves. We start to say, okay, last time it didn't quite work out, but that's okay, because this time I'm going to try this. Or this time I can look back at that experience and I recognize that it was my presentation style that made people not believe in this product. I wasn't bold enough in my choice of words. I hadn't paid enough attention to the prep work. I hadn't got my numbers quite right. That's all okay, because I've learned from it and I go in and I do it again. I'm going to challenge myself to do it better next time. So by creating these challenges, what we start to create is greater creativity within our own minds on how we're going to direct ourselves. How are we going to say, what is it that I can do differently? How can I make a better impact? How can I draw upon the skills and experience that I have and push them forward? And believe me, you'll start to come up with loads of different ideas and different ways. I once worked with someone who thought they were really bad at presentations, and they would go to a presentation in that mindset. I'm not good at presentations. Everyone's going to think I'm mumbling. I'm not very inspiring. I'm going to switch people off. Now, because they thought that and they told that to themselves, that's exactly what they did. So working with me, I was able to get them to try different approaches to address their presentation style. One of which, let me share with you, was actually, we were saying how much we loved what we did. How much do you love your idea? How much do you love your job? How much do you love this product that you're going to pitch? And we made this heart sign, and every time we spoke about it, we spoke with love. And therefore, because it was funny, because it was something different, his voice tone changed. The way he describes things changed. And that shows how being more creative with what you do can make a huge impact. And yes, he did go on to pull off some amazing presentations because he was actively engaged in the positivity that he was bringing to those presentations, rather than telling himself and then making himself be bad at them. By doing all of these things, we'll actually start to reduce the anxiety that we have around certain situations. So, for example, anyone who's looking for a career change knows that they potentially have to go to job interviews, they have to network, they have to do all of those things. And it's very easy for them to start saying to themselves, I don't have the same qualifications as other people in that arena. I don't have the same knowledge or background or experience. I know I'm not going to come across well in an interview. I know that those people are going to discover very quickly that I don't have the skills. Now, the person who maybe is thinking that to themselves, I would sit them down and I would say, you absolutely do have the skills, because you have the skill of knowing that you can learn. That's the first thing. Okay, we all know that we can learn. We've got to this stage in our life, in our careers, and in order to get here, we've had to learn. From the moment we were born, we've had to learn. So that's one amazing skill that each of us has, and we can keep using. So when you start to focus on those things that your inner critic is saying, and then be able to put the positive spin on them, to take that chance, you can start to reduce anxiety. Going for a career change, going for an interview, is a situation that in most people raises up anxiety. But if you can look at, where is that coming from? Why am I telling myself that? What would my friend say to me about that particular skill that I have? We can start to then reduce the anxiety, because we start to have a more positive self-belief framework within ourselves. By having that self-belief, we can start to make better decisions, because we start to open up a bigger portfolio of opportunities that lay before us. We start to envisage that we can be whatever we choose to be. Now, we have to make an informed choice about what it is we choose to be. I can't stand here today and say to you, I choose to be an astronaut. Number one, the reality is, I would say I'm too old, but recently the guy who used to be Captain Kirk, right, out of Star Trek, he went up to space. So I can't say I'm too old, but I know that I'm not in an ideal position right now to make me an astronaut. But I could change those circumstances if I really wanted to, if I was really that passionate and it meant something deep inside of me for me to do that. I could go ahead and do it. But you have to think about it in the way of your decision-making process. Is it the right decision for me right now to leave my family and move and train to be an astronaut? No, it's not. But what can I do? I can start to learn more about space. We've already all agreed that one of the amazing skills we all have on this conference is our ability to learn and to develop and to grow. So, you know what, absolutely, I could do that if I wanted to be. And I hope if ever I do become an astronaut, you'll all give me a wave as I zoom around in space. And then finally, the benefit of becoming friends with your inner critic is you become more empathetic towards other people. You're able to identify when other people are being self-critical, and you're able to share your journey, your story, your experience with them. And particularly if you're thinking about going into a leadership role within tech, you know, one of the key skills for leadership is around empathetic behavior. Not to be confused with sympathetic, which is, you know, where you've been through the same situation together, but where you're able to sit down with someone and say, tell me what's going on for you, and then relate to them in a way from your own being, from your stories, from your experience, and even admit if you have never had that experience, but you can say, I don't like to see you as your leader in such distress. What can I do to help? Because you're more aware of yourself, you're more grounded within yourself, you have these amazing, capable abilities that have come from understanding yourself and challenging yourself and pushing through those boundaries of limiting self-belief, that you can then help other people do it. So it has this lifelong effect on you, both in work, with your friendship groups, with your family, with just maybe even random people that you happen to meet as you're out and about in your everyday life, because you are more comfortable with who you are and your capabilities, and knowing when your inner critic is holding you back for a specific reason because there's a threat to your life, and when you are able to say, thanks for keeping me safe, but I'm going to take the risk on this one. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to see what happens. So there are loads more benefits to becoming friends with your inner critic, and I could literally talk to you for hours on this very subject, but they are some of them. I'd love to see in the chat any that you have come up with yourself. What do you imagine the biggest benefit would be to you? If you were suddenly to able to work with your inner critic right now and push through and take challenges and admit when you've made mistakes, what would the biggest benefit to you in your career, in your life, in your society be right now? Pop them in the chat and let me see what's going on there for you. So we've looked at benefits, we've looked at why our inner critic is there. And so I'm hoping that we are all getting to the stage now where we agree it's time to mix up that conversation. It's time to think about what are the alternatives I could tell myself? What are the real life experiences I have to draw upon to prove that this more positive mindset about myself, this more positive image and self-belief is true? Or that I at least have the passion and the drive to test whether it could be true. So I love this picture of the kitten and the tiger here, because what matters most in life, in you deciding which brain function you're going to be in, positive self-belief or self-criticism, comes down to how you see yourself. And I want you to cast aside those things that you've held on to from the past, where someone's told you that you're not very good, where someone maybe has told you you're not bright enough, where maybe someone has told you that because you're a woman, you don't deserve a seat at the table. It's not your place in life. Because do you see that yourself? Do you look in the mirror and see that person? Or do you look into the mirror and see the person that you can wholeheartedly become consistently every single day? And this doesn't change overnight. I wish that you would leave this presentation today and all of your self-criticism was washed away and you could suddenly be whatever it is that you want to be. That unfortunately is not the case. But what today will help you realize is that if you are consistent in your belief, in how you see yourself, in what you tell yourself, then day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, you will become that. And you will inspire those people that are around you to also become the best version of them that they want to be. And that's where there's such power and magic in believing in yourself, in challenging yourself, in listening to that critic and thinking, is this to keep me safe from harm, or is this to limit me? And then breaking through those limitations and creating a new dialogue. So how do we start reframing those things? So the first thing I've put on here is about showing yourself compassion. If your inner critic is continually telling yourself you don't have the right qualifications, you need to ask yourself, is that true? Is it true? If it is, can you do anything about it? Can you go and get those qualifications? Can you get yourself into a role where they will fund those qualifications and then remove that self-limiting belief? Talking to yourself with compassion, talking to yourself using examples of the past, using the fact that you know you're a lifelong learner and you are absolutely amazing at that, all helps to build up a more resilient image of yourself. But you have to be kind. You have to be kind in a way that says, okay, that's your opinion, but I know this. And keep telling the stuff you know to be true, that you are capable. The second thing is here, question the reality of what you're hearing, okay? Use the same example. You don't have the qualifications. Okay, I don't have the qualifications, but the reality is I'm a lifelong learner. I know how to learn, therefore I can get them. Okay, that's the reality. The reality is you're a lifelong learner. Maybe you tell yourself that other leaders in your organization don't rate you very much. How do you know that to be true? You have the same title. You have leader in your role, or manager, or whatever it may be. You are just as good as them. But you know what? I want you to believe you're even better, because you are you. They're not you. You have a multiple of skills and experiences and talent and things to express that will make you amazing. But you need to believe that. You believe that by reframing that negative, listening to it, checking, is this real or just my perception? Have I actually been told this? Did it actually happen? Or is it just what I believe may happen? And then you start to reframe, well, what's the positive side? Maybe you believe that people think you're really bossy. It's a common one I hear from a lot of women when they're going into a leadership role. I don't want to be seen as bossy. So what they're telling themselves is they are going to be seen as bossy. So therefore, let's reframe bossy to assertive. If a man is bossy or someone else is bossy, do you say they're bossy, or do you say they're really assertive? Do you say they command the room? Whatever it is that you would say positive about someone else with that attribute, I want you to start saying to yourself. So start reframing those. And when you're reframing them, seek positive reinforcement. Try these things out. Talk to people. Ask people, do you think I'm bossy? Do you think I'm assertive? Do you think I'm creative? You know, seek the positive reinforcement that actually what you're telling yourself you are in a positive way is seen by others. And by the way, if they come back and say, no, you're just really bossy, well, hey, then you need to maybe have a word with yourself. Do you have a problem? Do you need to address it? Is it something you want to work on? The answer, it's okay to say no if you're happy to be like that. So don't worry about that. But if the answer is, I'm not comfortable that that's how someone sees me, and they've told me they see me like that, then you can start to change that and then to seek that positive reinforcement again. Adjust your perception of the world, right? When you're asking people how they see you, what words they use to describe you, what they thought about your presentation, how they believe you are as a leader, you know, when you say to your friends, what do you think my career should look like? All of those things, what you need to do is adjust your perception, particularly if what you're being told is different to what you tell yourself. Adjust your perception of the world and the things that may go right and the things that may go wrong, so that they are meaningful to you, not to anyone else, but to you. And by adjusting your perception in that way, you'll start to find it easier to change that inner critic and become more friendly termed with it. And then the final thing I want you to do, and feel free to put these in the chat, okay? I want you to question yourself about the last time you held yourself back. And I want you to tell me, why did you self-sabotage? Why did you make that conscious decision to hold yourself back? Can you even remember why you did it, or you just let it happen? It's that ingrained in you that it's a subconscious behavior that you just do. But now, hopefully, you're more conscious about it. So you can start asking yourself, well, why am I self-sabotaging? And let me tell you, sometimes we self-sabotage because what we claim we want, that new job, that promotion, to be seen a certain way, we're saying we want it because we actually believe that that's what we should say. That's what everyone around us wants to hear. But our reality is we don't really want it. We don't want to be seen in that way. We don't want that job. We don't want that promotion. We don't want that leadership role. So you may start to question why you self-sabotage, and you may end up in that place, and that's okay, because now you're conscious about it. You're conscious about why you did it. And therefore, you know that in the future, you may want to repeat that behavior because the outcome will still be the same. Or you may say, actually, next time, I don't want to repeat that behavior. So I need to connect deeply, deep within my soul on why I want to do that particular thing. And that way I will encourage myself in friendly terms to achieve what I want to achieve. So how do we do that? How do we become more conscious of these thoughts, particularly because for many of us, this self-sabotage, this inner critic, this ability to tell ourselves the worst catastrophe that's going to happen, it is just always been there. We have to be mindful about it. And you've probably heard a lot about mindfulness over the time. And there may be people on this presentation today and at this conference who absolutely love mindfulness. And there'll be others that aren't quite so into it. That's okay, because it's all about being you. For this exercise, though, what I want you to think about is the fact that you don't have to action every thought you have. You are in control of which thoughts, which emotions, how you see yourself in the world, how you see other people. You are completely in control of that, but be conscious about doing that, so that when you start to talk to yourself in a more positive framed way, you do so in a consistent manner based on experiences and situations. So here's a little exercise that you could try if you wanted to. When you are next in a situation where that little voice comes into your head, that little self-sabotaging inner critic, I want you to, first of all, pause, just listen to it. Okay, that's what it said. I then want you to step back from it almost, okay? First of all, I want you to recognize, is it something that is keeping me safe from immediate harm and danger? And if it is, act on that, okay? I don't want any of you doing anything that endangers your life. But if it's not, and you can step back and you've given yourself space from the thought and you're recognizing what it's there for, you can say, is this here to equip me, to move me forward, or is it something that's going to hold me back from perceived danger or threat? And then allow yourself a moment to make the decision on whether you really want to put yourself in a place where you are in perceived threat and danger, or whether actually I'm quite happy where I am. I don't need to do that. I don't need to go and do that presentation. I don't need to go in and do that pitch for that product. I don't need to, go and stand in front of tech women and do all of this thing, right? Allow yourself the time to make up your mind consciously rather than act on default reactive behaviors. And then you will start to give yourself permission to acknowledge what you're saying to yourself and why. And then you can start all of that reframing stuff that we talked about just a moment ago in positive ways, and testing it out and experimenting and being creative if you want to. But the choice is yours. That ability is within your gift. So as we start to move towards the end of my time with you, which I have found delightful, and I hope you have too, I think you should now be able to start looking at, where's your inner critic coming from? Is it true? Is it not true? Why am I doing it? Am I happy to self-sabotage? All of those things you can start to address. You can start to use your critic when it's needed and be grateful to it. And at other times, thank it for its help. Thanks for trying to keep me safe, but I've got this one. I'm going to move forward. Use those friendly terms on yourself consistently. Don't just do it once and then hope that it will happen again. You need to be making conscious, mindful decisions about this and taking those conscious actions to challenge yourself, to experiment, to just be able to know that you have every gift you need to give yourself to be who you want to be. And whatever that looks like for you, that's great, because it's you and you're making this conscious decision based on this information that you're giving yourself to make those decisions. So everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for Femtech, for having me come back to conference again. The last one was amazing. This one's amazing. I hope that there is at least one of you out there that some of what I've said has resonated and you're going to take it away and you are absolutely going to become the best version of you that you want to be each and every day. That was a really big theme in the last presentation I did, becoming the best version of you for that day. And dealing with your inner critic helps you to become that whatever it is for you, helps you to become that. I'd love you to stay connected with me. I'd love to know how this works for you, what works, what doesn't, what experiments you try, how creative you get to become. So do connect with me on LinkedIn, on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. And go to my website if you'd like to book a connection call with me, have half an hour to talk about your situation and what you're going to do for yourself. I would love you to do that. And you can, there's a link at my website for you to do that. But all that remains is one last thank you from my heart to yours. I wish you all the best in your journey in tech or whatever it is that you want to do with your life, but be the best version of you. Thank you for sharing with me today. Bye-bye.